I never thought my wedding day would be a source of so much stress. Growing up, I'd always pictured the day as a celebration of love, surrounded by the people who genuinely cared about me. But reality has a way of flipping those idyllic dreams on their heads. When Mark proposed to me last summer, I said yes without hesitation. I knew I wanted to spend my life with him. He was everything I ever needed. Kind, smart, funny, and, more than anything, understanding of my complicated family situation. But now, 8 months into our engagement, I find myself questioning how well Mark truly understands that situation. I suppose I should have seen it coming. But the more we planned for the wedding, the more he pushed me to do the one thing I swore I'd never do: invite my parents. Have you thought about reaching out to your mom and dad? Mark asked one evening as we sat in bed, going over the guest list for what felt like the 100th time. His tone was gentle, non-confrontational. But I could feel the weight of the question before he even finished speaking. No, I replied quickly, trying to push the idea out of my mind. They're not coming. Mark. We've been through this. Mark sighed, setting the list down on the bed. I just think it's important. They're your parents. Don't you think they'd want to be there for your big day? I bristled at the suggestion. It was hard to explain to someone like Mark, who had a perfect family, the kind of family that attended every holiday together, never missed a birthday, and supported each other no matter what. My family wasn't like that. In fact, I hadn't spoken to my parents in over 3 years. And even before that, our relationship was strained at best. They didn't even come to my college graduation. Remember? I said, my voice laced with bitterness. They didn't care then. And they won't care now. Mark shifted on the bed, his expression softening as he reached for my hand. I know it's complicated, but maybe this could be a fresh start. A way to mend things. A fresh start. I had to laugh at the absurdity of it. My parents weren't the type of people you could just mend things with. They hadn't supported me through any major milestone in my life. And they sure as hell hadn't supported my relationship with Mark. The last time I saw my father, he told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life by moving in with him. My mother had nodded along, quietly complicit as always, never daring to challenge my father's authority. It's not that simple, I said, pulling my hand away and standing up to pace the room. You don't know them like I do. Mark stayed quiet for a moment, watching me with that thoughtful look he always got when he was trying to figure out how to approach a delicate topic. I know they've hurt you, he said finally. But maybe they've changed. It's been years. People grow. I stopped pacing, turning to face him. People like them don't change, Mark. They're not going to suddenly become the loving, supportive parents I needed back then. I'm not asking you to forgive them for everything, Mark said, his voice calm and measured. But they're still your family. Isn't it worth at least trying? I could feel the frustration bubbling up inside me, threatening to spill over. Why was he pushing this so hard? He knew how I felt. And yet he kept bringing it up as if it was a simple fix. As if all I had to do was send an invitation and magically everything would be okay. They're not coming, I said firmly, crossing my arms over my chest. And I don't want them there. Mark ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. I just think you'll regret it if you don't at least try. I felt my stomach churn at his words. Regret. I had enough of that when it came to my parents. Regret for every time I tried to please them and failed. Regret for the years I spent tiptoeing around their expectations, trying to be the perfect daughter they wanted. I wasn't about to add more to the pile. They wouldn't come even if I invited them, I muttered, more to myself than to him. They'd find some excuse. You don't know that, Mark said gently. And if they don't come, At least you'll know you tried. But if you don't invite them, you'll never know. I sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. It wasn't that I didn't understand where Mark was coming from, I did. He wanted the best for me. For us. He thought this was about healing. About giving me some kind of closure. But he didn't know what it was like to live with the constant disappointment of parents who could never love you the way you needed. Who saw your choices as mistakes. Your independence as a rebellion. I've spent my whole life trying. I said quietly. My voice barely above a whisper. I tried to be the daughter they wanted. And it was never enough. They'll never change. Mark. And I'm not going to give them the chance to ruin my wedding day. Mark sat next to me, silent for a long moment before he spoke again. I just want you to be happy, he said softly. I don't want you to have any regrets about this. I won't. I said. Though a part of me wasn't sure if that was true. I wanted to believe it, I needed to believe it. But deep down, there was that nagging voice that always told me I was the one who failed. That I was the one who walked away. Mark didn't push the issue that night. But I knew it wasn't over. He wasn't the type to give up easily. Especially when he thought he was helping. And over the next few weeks, he brought it up again and again. Always in that same soft, non-judgmental tone. I could tell he thought he was being considerate. But each time he mentioned my parents, it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. As the wedding day crept closer, the pressure only grew. Mark's family was involved in every step of the planning. His mother practically living at our apartment to help with decorations, catering, and everything in between. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate their support, I did. But every time I saw Mark's parents, I was reminded of what I didn't have. I saw the way they fussed over him. How they were so proud of everything he did. How they embraced me like their own daughter. And it hurt. It hurt to see the kind of love and acceptance I would never get from my own family. A week before the wedding, Mark brought it up again. This time after dinner as we were cleaning up in the kitchen. Have you thought any more about inviting them? I set down the dish I was scrubbing, gripping the edge of the sink as the frustration finally boiled over. Why do you keep asking me this? I already told you no. Mark blinked, taken aback by the sharpness in my voice. I just don't want you to regret it. That's all. I won't. I snapped, turning to face him. Why can't you understand that? Mark held up his hands defensively. I'm just trying to help. Emma. I'm not trying to upset you. Well, you are. I shouted, my voice trembling with anger. You're upsetting me every time you bring it up. I told you how I feel. And you keep pushing. Mark opened his mouth to respond. But I didn't give him the chance. I've spent my whole life trying to get their approval. Trying to make them happy. And it's never worked. They don't care about me. And they sure as hell don't care about this wedding. So stop acting like they're going to magically show up and everything will be fine. Because it won't. The silence that followed was deafening. Mark stood there, his face a mixture of shock and hurt. I hadn't meant to explode like that. But the emotions had been building for weeks. And I couldn't hold them back any longer. I'm sorry. I muttered, wiping my hands on a towel and avoiding his gaze. I can't talk about this anymore. Mark nodded slowly, his expression softening as he stepped closer. I didn't realize how much this was hurting you, he said quietly. I don't know. I thought I was helping. I sighed, my anger quickly replaced by exhaustion. I know you meant well. But this is it's too much for me. He wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into a tight embrace. I love you, Emma. I don't want anything to ruin our day. Not your parents. Not anything. I buried my face in his chest, letting his warmth calm the storm inside me. "I love you too," I whispered. Mark didn't bring it up again after that. And when our wedding day finally arrived, it was perfect. Not because my parents were there, they weren't, but because the people who truly mattered were. Mark's family. My friends. The people who had supported us from the beginning. And for the first time in my life, I realized that family didn't have to mean blood. It could mean the people who chose to love you. Who stood by you no matter what. As we exchanged our vows under the clear blue sky, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. My parents weren't there. But that was okay. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had everything I needed right in front of me. And in that moment, I knew I wouldn't regret a thing.